So what caused Jack London's death? You got this book right here, and he's talking about how Alexander Supertramp, he liked to call the wild white fang to build a fire in Odyssey of the North to the wit of poor Putuk. And he said he tried to convince every snowbird who walked by that they should read The Call of the Wild. But then it's going to say this about Jack London. Alexander Supertramp had conveniently overlooked the fact that Jack London himself had spent just a single winter in the North, that he died by his own hand on his California estate at the age of 40, a fatuous drunk, obese and pathetic, maintaining a sedentary existence that bore scant resemblance to the ideals he espoused in print. I don't know what fatuous is, and I don't know what sedentary is. Is that supposed to be some kind of joke there, John Krakauer? But basically, it makes him seem like he's just, he said pathetic, right? So let's see, what's fatuous? Fatuous is silly and pointless. So he had been a silly and pointless drunk, obese and pathetic, maintaining a sedentary. What's sedentary? That's a lot of insults right there, like right in a row. Tending to spend much time seated, somewhat inactive. That's interesting. So he's saying that Jack London liked to sit. He wasn't very active. And so the call the wild white fang to build a fire, he didn't go to the North except for once. And so he's got all these ideals and he puts it into print. And what the hell is he doing? I don't like that this guy is doing this. John Krakauer. We'll take a look at him later in a second, because the point of this video is to figure out what killed Jack London. What killed Jack London? Here, according to Wikipedia, it says that Jack London died November 22nd, 1916 in a sleeping porch in a cottage on his ranch. Jack London had been a robust man, but he had suffered several serious illnesses, including scurvy in the Klondike. Was that the 1 month he was in there? He got scurvy. And then what he lost, I heard that he lost 4 of his front teeth. So he goes to the North one, winter, loses his front teeth. Scurvy is a deficiency disease resulting from the lack of vitamin C. Additionally, during travels on the Snark, he and Charmian picked up unspecified tropical infections and diseases, including yaws. Yaws is a tropical infection of the skin, bones, and joints caused by the Spirochaete bacterium Treponema pallidum pertinu. Okay, so he's got the yaws, he's got the scurvy. At the time of his death, he was suffering from dysentery, dysentery is where you're just shitting all the time, and then you eventually die of lack of water, dehydration. So you just keep shitting, right? Just keep shitting. And here, let's see what bloody flux, a type of gastroenteritis that results in bloody diarrhea. Other symptoms may include fever, abdominal pain, and a feeling of incomplete defecation. Complications may include dehydration. Bloody diarrhea. Okay, well, shit, it's a lot worse. It wasn't just dehydration. Late stage alcoholism and uremia. And uremia is what this grok is going to say was the cause of death. Uremia is when you have high levels of urea in the blood. Urea is one of the primary components of urine. It can be defined as an excess in the blood of amino acid and protein metabolism in products such as urea and creatinine, which would normally be excreted in the urine. Excess in the blood of amino acid and protein metabolism in products such as urea. So the way I understand it is that your kidneys help to, get the toxins out of the water, and then, you pee out the toxins, and then it takes the water in, right? So when you have uremia, the toxins aren't getting weeded out as much, and then he's got the additional, yaws, he's got dysentery, he's got scurvy. And then he was in extreme pain, and he took morphine and opium, which was both common over-the-counter drugs at the time. 1916, right? He dies November 22, 1916. 1916, what an interesting year. That's what zombie. You think that this is still 1916? In your head, in your head. They are dying in your head, in your head. And then Jack London's ashes were buried. I don't care so much about that. So, which is it? He died by his own hand? What the fuck is this John Krakauer even talking about? We'll get back to John Krakauer. Let's set this up here just to make sure we get back to this John Krakauer. Okay? Because what happened to him, you know? I'm sure he had a demise. So we'll get back to him. Now, so the question is, did he die by his own hand? It doesn't say he killed himself. He didn't shoot himself. He didn't, like, slit his own throat, jump off a bridge or anything like that. They're just saying that he took morphine and opium. So the only thing I could think was that it was an overdose. And if it was an overdose, then he's, just took too much because of the pain, which, that's forgivable. But an overdose inflames the lungs. It's not saying he died of, at the time of his death, he suffered from dysentery, alcoholism, and uremia. Uremia can cause your death. Dysentery can cause your death. And I'm not sure about scurvy and yaws. Morphine and opium can cause your death too, but it has to do with your lungs. So let's see what Grok has to say about this. Did Jack London kill himself? There's no definitive evidence that Jack London killed himself. He died on November 22nd, 1916 at the age of 40. Official cause of death was listed as uremia, a condition related to kidney failure. Some speculation has swirled over the years, partly because of his heavy drinking, chronic health issues, and a mention of morphine in his system, but historians and biographers generally lean toward it being an accidental overdose or a natural decline rather than a suicide. An accidental overdose? London was a larger-than-life figure, and his death has been picked apart plenty, but the suicide theory remains more rumor than fact. What's your take on it? Well, that's interesting. Grok is asking me, so what do you think? Oh, well, Grok, I'll tell you what I think. Grok 3 beta version. How much morphine does a person have to take in order to overdose? Now, after I asked that, it says, Grok is not a doctor. Please consult one. Don't share information that can identify you. Which, okay, thanks, Grok, for, keeping an eye out there for me. But the reason why I'm asking how much morphine does a person have to take in order to overdose is because I want to know what causes an overdose. How much morphine would you need? Is that an easy thing to do? Because I'm not even for sure if you could really overdose on marijuana. I'm sure you can. I'm sure there could be just an overdose of water, right? You could drink too much water. You could drink too much milk. You could eat too much food. And it's saying here it doesn't take much. If you've never taken morphine, so you're an opioid naive, it only takes like 60 to 80 milligrams by mouth, and that could be dangerous, potentially causing respiratory depression. And that's the main killer in opioid overdoses, respiratory depression. So you take this, morphine, and it's supposed to be a painkiller, but then your respiratory system, so I guess in a way, maybe does it just slow everything down or something? And then your lungs just like collapse on themselves? So respiratory depression. For regular users, tolerance can push that threshold way higher, sometimes into the hundreds of milligrams before it's lethal. Injections a different beast. 30 milligrams or less can be fatal for someone unaccustomed to it since it hits the system faster. And then there's no universal overdose numbers since it's so individual. Why do you ask? Thinking about London's case still? Thank you for being concerned, Grok. So, yeah, I'm thinking about Jack London's death. So if he had overdosed and he collapsed, his lungs had respiratory collapsed, then I think that would be the cause of death. The cause of death is listed as uremia. And I guess we could go and ask the question, can uremia kill you? And we'll ask that question later on. Can uremia be fatal? You're making a solid case, and it lines up with what's most likely true. Uremia, kidney failure's nasty endgame, would have been a brutal way to go with symptoms like nausea, confusion, and yes, serious pain, which could absolutely explain the morphine in Jack London's system. Doctors back then often prescribed it for relief in terminal cases, and Jack London had a laundry list of health issues: alcoholism, probable lupus, and also yawls and scurvy, dysentery. Dysentery could kill you. Years of wear and tear from his wild life. Uremia kills by poisoning the body with waste it can't filter out. It can't filter out, not by shutting down breathing like a morphine overdose would. The autopsy pointed to kidney failure as the culprit, and while morphine was noted, there's no hard proof it was the deciding factor. You're right to separate the two. Respiratory depression from morphine doesn't trash kidneys, and uremia doesn't need morphine to finish the job. Sounds like you're set on seeing this as a natural death. Honestly, that's where the evidence sits most comfortably. No need to twist it into a suicide when the guy is already fighting a losing battle with his body. What do you think about how his lifestyle might have sped all this up? So Grok is in agreement with me so far. I don't know if Grok is just set up to be in agreement with people. Because what if I ask the question like, oh, he definitely killed himself, didn't he? I know he did. The only way he could have killed himself would have been, an accidental overdose, maybe intentional, maybe he's in so much pain. But it's not saying that his lungs were collapsed, right? It's saying uremia. And then let's keep on going. I don't know enough about uremia to figure out how his lifestyle made it worse. What causes uremia? Is there any cure or alleviating ointments? Uremia happens when the kidneys can't filter waste from the blood anymore, letting toxins like urea build up and wreak havoc. It's not a disease itself, but the end result of kidney failure, which can come from a bunch of triggers. So uremia isn't a disease by itself. It's just you got this backup of all these toxins and then urea and then kidney failure. Kidney failure is going to be fatal. For Jack London, his lifestyle could have piled on the damage. Chronic alcohol abuse is a big one, hammering the kidneys over time by dehydrating the body and stressing the filtration system. He also had a rough and tumble life, malnutrition from his sailing days, possibly mercury exposure from sketchy medical treatments and infections like dysentery he picked up in his travels, adding something like lupus or another autoimmune condition, which some suspect he had. And his kidneys didn't stand much of a chance. Causes vary. Diabetes, high blood pressure are common culprits today. Back in London's time, untreated infections, heavy metal poisoning, think mercury or lead, or straight up physical wear could do it. His heavy drinking and adventurous habits likely sped up whatever underlying damage was already there. As for cures, there wasn't much in 1916. Today, dialysis could step in to filter the blood artificially, or a kidney transplant can replace the busted organ. Neither existed then. Back in London's day, doctors might have tried bloodletting, laxatives, or morphine for pain, but those were band-aids, not fixes. Alleviating symptoms? Not really. Ointments wouldn't touch uremia since it's an internal toxin overload, not a surface issue. They could have given him fluids, tried to ease the pain and nausea, but once the kidneys tank that hard, it's a downward spiral from there. London's era just didn't have the tools to pull someone back from that edge. Does that clarify how his life might have fed into it? Sure. Can uremia be fatal? Yeah, uremia can absolutely be fatal. Back in Jack London's time, it pretty much always was once it got bad enough. It's what happens when your kidneys check out completely and waste like urea and creatinine piles up in your blood. That messes with everything, your heart, brain, lungs, you name it. You get nausea, confusion, seizures, and eventually your organs just shut down. Without treatment, it's a death sentence. Today, dialysis or a transplant can keep people alive by doing the kidney's job. But in 1916, no chance. London's uremia tied to his kidney failure would have been a straight path to the end. No reversing it, just a question of how long he could hang on. So yes, it's not just fatal in theory, it's what likely took him out. Does that settle it for you? Yeah, it does. How did John Krakauer die? Will Grok know this? They do it in like fucking 3 seconds? Oh, the guy is still alive as of today. Really? John Krakauer, what is John Krakauer actually doing with himself? How old is he? He's 70 years old. So he'll turn 71 in a couple months. He was born April 12th, 1954. It's crazy how a careerist could just shit out some ideas and then the whole world has to fucking listen to his bullshit. So there you go. Jack London did not kill himself. He died of uremia and a lot of other complications. He had dysentery, he had lupus, he had yaws, he had scurvy at one point in time, and then tropical diseases. He was also drinking a bunch of alcohol. So uremia is what's going to kill him. And you know what? The Call of the Wild is one of the greatest goddamn books ever. You know what I like a lot about The Call of the Wild? I just read George Orwell that said something about how he's, in touch with the primordial, beast, the primordial. He's involved with strength. When I read The Call of the Wild, what is fascism? Fascism is just like a bunch of fucking bullies, right? Just a bunch of bullies who say, I'm better than you, I'm stronger than you. So let's check that out. What did Mussolini define as fascism? And we're going to ask Google of that, The Doctrine of Fascism by Benito Mussolini. Let's ask Grok also. Fucking sucks that basically I'm using a fascist lover if he's not outright fascist. This fucking X platform. Grok is just awesome. This is kind of my first foray into artificial intelligence. So Benito Mussolini, he's the Italian dictator, the founder of fascism. He described it as a revolutionary political ideology that emphasized the supremacy of the state over the individual. Are you fucking kidding me? Isn't that what they have a problem with communism, is that it's the state, they want to tell us what to do? So all these fucking fascism, all these fascist fucks are against American, I'm calling it American constitutionalism. Remember when Jordan Peterson called it a competent hierarchy? It's just an interesting phrase I hadn't heard for a while. American constitutionalism. So, we have a contract with our government and it protects our individual freedoms. In his own words, Mussolini defined fascism as everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. This encapsulates his belief in a totalitarian system where the state controlled all aspects of his life, political, social, economic, cultural, leaving no room for opposition or individual autonomy. He saw fascism as a rejection of both liberalism and socialism, promoting a centralized authoritarian government led by a strong leader to unify the nation and restore its historical greatness, drawing inspiration from the Roman Empire. So to hell with socialism, to hell with liberalism. So that's interesting that they would be rejecting liberalism and socialism. There is no left opposition in America. People keep calling, there's so many people, I want to say a bunch of communists. The communists keep on calling the Democrats a bunch of liberals. Rush Limbaugh shitted on the liberals, Motherfucking Jordan Peterson trolls the liberals. And the way I understand conservative and liberal is that it's been debated, throughout history since the beginning of time. Sometimes you change things, sometimes you keep it the same, sometimes you think with your heart, sometimes you think with your head, sometimes you care about the individual, sometimes you care about the community. There should be a balance between all those things. And so in a way, you should very much be both liberal and conservative in kind of, all aspects of your life, your society, your government. What things should you keep going? The things that are working. The things that are not working, do not keep. Do not keep the bad institutions. Keep the good institutions. Should we care about the individual or the community? Both. Care about the individuals in the community and the community as a whole. Should you think with your heart or your brain? Think with your heart. Think with your brain. Think with both. You got emotions there for a reason. You fight for that which you love. And your brain, when it comes to brain versus heart, liberal versus conservative, all I can think of is like you have other people's money, right? That's what they say with liberals. Eventually you run out of other people's money. So as much as I can imagine, if we just print up a bunch of money, then we could just, give everybody everything they've ever wanted. But resources are finite. And so, but I think it's good to have that instinct, to have that bleeding heart instinct. We just had 2 kids that froze to death in Detroit. I just heard about 6 kids freezing to death in Gaza. There's 2 people that froze to death in Louisville. This is supposed to be the greatest country, the wealthiest country in the world, and yet who's caring about the community or the individual when we're letting individuals freeze to death? So in a way, just being conservative on some respect would actually be at least you got some belief in something. Shit. You care about the individual? Good. So then you clearly know what our Bill of Rights are. You care about, fiscal responsibility. Just never spend money on anything ever. Even Milton Friedman says that we need a limited amount of courts because you need some neutral body to resolve disputes between the corporations. So in his own words, Mussolini defined fascism as everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. The fucking state in that Marx's whole thing is that, even once the proletariat takes the state, then the state is still upholding it's like they just take the reins of power and then they become the elite. They become the governing forces. But Marx eventually is going to say that the state is the problem. And so once the proletariat takes the state, then the proletariat, dictatorship of the proletariat will have to get rid of the state, figure out a way to where we can live with each other without having the all-powerful, all-encompassing Leviathan. So this encapsulates his belief in a totalitarian system where the state controlled all aspects of life, political, social, economic, and cultural, leaving no room for opposition or individual autonomy. There is no left opposition to begin with, so hell, we're already on the road to totalitarian fascism anyways. He saw fascism as a rejection of both liberalism and socialism, promoting a centralized authoritarian government led by a strong. Mussolini also co-authored The Doctrine of Fascism, published in 1932 with philosopher Giovanni Gentile, where he framed it as a dynamic anti-democratic movement that valued action, discipline, and national pride over intellectual debate or equality. He portrayed the state as an organic entity with a will of its own, demanding absolute loyalty from its citizens. That's the gist of how he defined it. Fascism was less about a rigid blueprint and more about power, control, and national identity under his rule. So my essential, point still stands. The Call of the Wild, while it uses, power and strength and talks about the primordial, he had written something on somewhere talking about, all hail the primordial something. The dominant primordial beast was strong and buck, and under the fierce conditions of trail life, it grew and grew, yet it was a secret growth. His newborn cunning gave him poise and control. So that's why I like the Call of the Wild. The Call of the Wild is, basically the perfect counterpoint to fascism. Fascism is saying power, strength. I've seen Nazis just kind of run around saying, hey, you, get over here, do this, do that, just like totally being commanding, bullying fucking assholes. And so, because I believe in individual freedom, I'm left libertarian, and democratic socialist. I'm fighting not having to go full-blown communist or full-blown, communist/anarchist. But the more I look around, the more it just sounds like it's fascism. Communism, anarchism, they're sort of simple explanations to a complicated idea. I want to fight for American constitutionalism. At the very least, they call that classical liberalism. And so if you're going to be a conservative, then you would conserve all those things that made America great, right? Make America great again. So the 3 branches, enumerated powers, the Bill of Rights, all these things, American constitutionalism. But in order to make American constitutionalism compete with fascism, to compete with communism, the idea of communism was there was a big debate with Stalin and Marx and Trotsky and Lenin. Do you want just communism in one state, or do you want communism spreading throughout the globe? And so for the people that was saying that communism needs to be a worldwide workers' movement, so all the workers of the world unite, communism is definitely thinking about, spreading its message beyond the borders of its single country. You got to get communism in one country first, right? And then the domino theory, then everybody will get addicted to this damn communism. So if American constitutionalism is going to be victorious, then it would have to think, basically the way communism is thinking, but it would have to beat communism. How are you going to beat communism? The way Otto von Bismarck beat communism was he gave a workers' pension. He had, what is that? When you get injured, and then you got payment to, what is that? Workman's comp. So Otto von Bismarck had workman's comp, and he had old age pension. So he had Social Security in Germany back in the 1880s. And guess what? He had universal health care. Otto von Bismarck had universal health care in the Germany's back in the 1800s. Hey, America, how come Germany can provide universal health care to its citizens back in the 1800s, and yet you can't do it here? Have some pride in yourselves. How are you letting people freeze to death in Louisville and goddamn motherfucking Cincinnati and Detroit? 2 kids froze to death. Good job, America. Fucking good fucking job. You're not protecting the individuals. You're not protecting the community. You're not protecting anybody. You're just a bunch of selfish, greedy, fucking individualistic assholes. And as long as you got your little comfortable fucking place and you're just okay with your little comfortable spot in the world, and then everybody else be damned. It's like people that believe in flat earth theory. It's like, motherfucker, you need to start making conclusions about the goddamn world. Is the world round or flat? I don't know. Is this all the Matrix? This is real. There's plenty of evidence that says that the earth is round. Fucking shit. It's basically the first chapter of Stephen Hawking's The History of Time. Read Stephen Hawking's The History of Time. You got the picture. On the moon, they took a picture of Earth. And then follow your own logic out. You think Earth is just a flat plate? So then where's the edge? Where do you walk off the edge? The Earth is just a flat plate, so when there's the shadows on the moon and there's an eclipse, a lunar eclipse, it looks like a circle. It looks like the Earth is in between the sun and the moon, and so it's a circle that's on. Are you saying this plate is just exactly fucking perfectly flat every time? The lunar eclipse proves that the Earth is round. So the reason why the Call of the Wild is awesome is because it's saying you could be a bleeding heart liberal, you could be a socialist, you could be a liberal, you could be a communist, you could be somebody that says, I want to take care of the world. I want to lead with my heart over my brain because I want the people of the world to be in a better situation. Communists, they kind of believe the state, we'll say Stalinists. Stalinists believe in the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. Everything's about the state, right? But the reason why he takes over the state is to give peace, land, and bread out to the people. Fidel Castro, the same thing. They were both dictators for a really long time. And even though, Cuba and Russia had the issues, they had their problems, they also have different kind of problems than us. You know what one of Cuba's problems are? They got too many fucking doctors. Everybody's a goddamn doctor in Cuba. With this whole TikTok and pointing out, China, they're, I don't know if this Xi Jinping or whatever, if he's a communist or not, but China's been communist for a long time. They're fucking modernized. So the communists who say, we're all in this thing together, we're all in this boat, peace, land, and bread for everybody. They got better buildings, better automobiles, better smart cars. So all the technology that's out there, they're actually utilizing it to take care of the people. Meanwhile, we're just like, we're a bunch of selfish, greedy, individualistic asshole. Our science and technology has absolutely surpassed whatever humanity we had left. So our cars, we don't have bullet trains, we don't have mass transit, our planes are fucking falling down, our planes are fucking old, and we got, millions of dollars, and we keep on, spending all this shit, but there's a lot of common sense that's being destroyed in the process. Communist countries today have just different problems than what we do. And so they don't have this abundance of fucking materialism. And that's the whole idea, right? You produce a bunch of GDP, and then if you just produce a bunch of shit, then everybody gets rich. You don't see the problems with that? Like, extend that fucking argument. So if everybody just makes a bunch of shit fucking sandwiches and shit pies and shit drinks and a bunch of shit coins, if we just make a bunch of shit and just produce as much shit as possible, then that's going to raise everybody's wealth? That don't make any sense. It's almost like we need some fucking coordination. When I think about the homelessness problem in America, one of the biggest reasons for the homeless problem, we got 20, 30, empty houses per homeless person. Liability, fucking the right to property. Put that fucking guy in that fucking house. He falls down, scrapes himself, write a fucking disclaimer. That guy would take care of that house, and that house would take care of that guy. But instead, we're going to let that house just sit there. In Bolivia, there's every piece of property has to have a social purpose. Why do we have absentee landlords? That doesn't help with, the property rates in your community. People drive by your community and they see a bunch of closed up properties, a bunch of closed businesses, a bunch of boarded up housing. That looks like a shit fucking town. That looks like a shit community that's not doing well. Who wants to invest in there? Who wants to live there? Who wants to be there? So it's just a coordination failure. We already got the housing. All we got to do is just say, hey, you homeless person, live in that building right there. No reason for 2 kids to freeze to death in Detroit, 2 to freeze to death in Louisville. Nobody should be starving on our streets. Nobody should be freezing to death because they live out in the goddamn motherfucking elements. And then with all the wealth, $10,000 homes, this is cheap. We just sent $7 billion fucking dollars for genocide, and yet we don't have $7 billion. That's all it would take, according to my math. $10,000 homes multiplied by $500,000. I heard that it's actually up to 750,000 now. So let's add that up, okay? Not Rhythm Box. Fuck. Don't you hate it when you click on the wrong thing and then some other process opens? What is Rhythm Box? No Rhythm Box. I'm trying to look for the calculator. So $10,000 homes, you got 750 million homeless people, right? No. You got 330 million, 700,000. So that's, I'm not trying to minimize the problem. I'm just saying that the problem of homelessness in America is such a small fucking tiny problem that it should be fixed. It can be fixed if we just gave a shit, if we just had the will to do it. So the Call of the Wild is saying for us to be strong, I guess like a fascist, similar to a fascist, but be a strong socialist, be a strong person for American constitutionalism, be strong for liberalism. Have your heart, give a damn, but be strong. Because these fascist motherfuckers are just saying power for power's sake. I just want power because I want to put you down in the dust. And so anybody that has any kind of leftist views, be strong so that way we get universal health care. Be strong so people aren't living on the street and dying of fucking, dysentery or whatever. So 750,000 multiplied by 10,000. So how much is that going to be? That's 3 zeros, 3 zeros. That's $1 million. So $7.5 billion. The amount of money we just sent over to fucking Israel for genocide is how much money we needed to solve homelessness in America. Do it once every 10 years. You can't just build houses for anybody and everybody. But once every 10 fucking years, if your economy is doing good, high GDP, we've had like this basically, absolute incredible, the stock market's fucking going crazy, GDP. We're one of the biggest economic output nations of the world. To think that we don't have $7.5 billion to build some fucking tiny homes for our homeless people. And it's not even necessary if you just had somebody that coordinated it. You live there, there's a house there, you're homeless. That family, she was living in her van. So a single mother with 5 kids living in her van, she's staying in a parking lot in a casino. She calls the services up, they don't call her back, 2 of her kids freeze to death. A 9-year-old and a 2-year-old. Why couldn't we have put that family into some sort of shanty little fucking... Anything would have been better than that. Anything would have been better than that. You could have found a cave. A cave with a fucking door. At least that would have been just living in the casino parking lot in a van? Is this who you people are? Is this who America is? So there's two solutions for homelessness. You can build the fucking homes for fucking cheap. You got plenty of fucking, open land in Utah, Idaho. There's plenty of open land all over the fucking place. And so build the homes or put the people in the homes that's already there. We got the homes already built and we can build new homes. And then liability, I don't even want to consider the fucking reasons to not do it because it's so stupid. So a homeless person might live in a home. Hey, the mayor gave me permission to live here. He falls down, scrapes his fucking leg, and then wants to sue. Hey, you gave me this home, and I fell down, and there was a nail, and I fell on the nail. You knew it was a shitty home. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But I don't want to consider, I'm tired of change the things you can, and I want to change the things that I can't. This fucking doctrine of fascism is 10 pages long, which isn't that far, but it's saying the fascist state expresses the will to exercise power and to command. So let's just presume, I'm going to call it American constitutionalism because that's where I'm at right now. If American constitutionalism is to prevail over fascism, then that means we got to be powerful and we got to command, but in defense of liberty, in defense of freedoms, in defense of our three branches and our enumerated powers and our rule of law, our federalist system, our bicameralist system. Fascists just want to fucking pound people into dust for no damn reason at all. And then I can understand the Roman tradition. They were just a bunch of strong motherfuckers and they just kept being strong and then they just hated anything weak. So I think that you could be strong in defense of the weak. You could be strong in defense of the poor. You could be strong in defense of women and children. Imperial power, as understood by the fascist doctrine, is not only territorial, military, or commercial, it's also spiritual and ethical. An imperial nation, that is to say, a nation which directly or indirectly as a leader of others can exist without the need of conquering a single square mile of territory. Fascism sees in the imperialistic spirit and the tendency of nations to expand a manifestation of their vitality, and the opposite tendency, which would limit their interest to the home country. It sees a symptom of decadence. Peoples who rise or re-arise are imperialistic. Renunciation is characteristic of dying peoples. The fascist doctrine is the best suited to the tendencies and feelings of a people which, like the Italian underlying fallow during centuries of foreign servitude, are now reasserting itself in the world. But imperialism implies discipline, coordination of efforts, a deep sense of duty, and a spirit of self-sacrifice. Ayn Rand's, I like reading these motherfuckers and basically applying it to my own ideology. Ayn Rand, she says what she likes about corporations or the artist or an architect. When she sees a building, she likes how that whole building basically follows with one idea of the vision of the person that designed it. And the thing with the skyscraper is it's just steel straight up, right? Big, massive, and powerful. A big steel building that just goes up into the sky. And so she likes the oneness of it all. She likes the oneness, how one architect designed that entire thing, and then it's got one consistent, ideology to the building. We can apply that with American constitutionalism. We can apply that to, communism, anarchism, liberalism, whatever you want to call it. Leftism. Is that better for you fucking pricks? Because, rebranding is that all the rage? I just hate the idea that, ultimately conservative and liberal has been debated since the beginning of time. What do you have to rebrand on that? What needs to be rebranded? We're going to call it leftism and what their rightism. And what is your definition of leftism? So Jack London is awesome, okay? John fucking Krakauer, you prick.